Okay, everyone, welcome to Medicine Buddha practice. Just trying to get the frame right. So good to see everyone here. If you're new, please introduce yourself in the chat box. If you have any questions, please add those to the question box below. Um, and for those of you who are new, I am Lama Rod Owens, and I use he, him pronouns. And I am here on ancestral lands of Muskogee, Creek and Cherokee people, but also um, kind of Mayan land as well. There's evidence that Mayans lived here on this land as well. But we call this land Atlanta now, so it's really good to be here with everyone. I want to start with the dream that I just had just an hour ago. And in the dream, I was doing medicine Buddha. I was doing a session, but it was a live in-person session, but also being streamed. And I was trying to, so people were coming into this space for practice. It was like an auditorium. And I was doing my own tech support, which is always challenging. And no matter what I was doing, I kept typing Crowdcast or trying to find Crowdcast on my computer to open up the application. I couldn't find it. And it also was like, it was so hard to actually figure out how to type on the board. It was just one of those dreams. And then someone came up and started helping me, get the application open. And and then they look at me and they're like, "What's wrong with you? Are you like drunk?" I was like, "No." And then it comes to find out that the application wasn't on my computer to begin with. So there you go. That's the dream. Not too exciting, but I thought I would share it. So anyway, welcome everyone. So again, if you want to say hello, this is not mandatory. If you want to say hello, that'll be great. It's always good to see. I don't get to see who's in the room until you type something in. What else? Our Medicine Buddha retreat, July 9th. Is it the 9th? Yeah, I think it's the 9th. 10 to 5 p.m. Registration is up. Please join us. It'll be a great introduction for those of you who are really super new to this practice. I hope to use part of the day just to go through some general aspects of Tantra with you as well. There'll be some reading. I will just scan any reading that I may want us to look at, and any links I will have for you to look at. Just some stuff that's fully on the internet from other lamas about the practice of Medicine Buddha. So what else? So before we begin practice, I think it is important to really. So I've been making some very strong statements this past week about the ending of Roe versus Wade, to the dismay of professional spiritual practitioners, which, as you know, professional spiritual practitioners are my favorite demographic. And particularly the subset of professional demographics, professional Buddhists are especially my favorite group of people um, to work with. Uh, so yeah, I've gotten some feedback, right? And for me, I think, like, what do I think? I think of a lot of things. What do I think? Um, oh, this is, you don't have to apologize for anything. Oh my God. I get criticized for everything. I have Facebook groups devoted to me, talking shit about me. People will jump on YouTube. Um, I used to argue with people left and right on social media, other professional Buddhists on social media. And I was just like, this is just a waste of energy, because it's all racist. Uh, it's all very queerphobic. It's all very classist and elitist. And, I'm not really for all of that. I guess it's important to point out that, like, I am an abolitionist, right? And I was an abolitionist before, we were using that language. I've been in this since, the moment in my teenage years and my mid-teens where I was like, oh, this is really fucked up. This whole, like, racism thing is just like, whoa, this is really too much. I'm gonna have to do something about this. And then for me, getting into radical politics, radical activism in my 20s, and really committing to this idea of freedom, right? Of course, for me, first and foremost, it was social freedom. Like, what is social freedom? That's what I was looking for. And, of course, the work of social freedom meant that I had to rethink structures and systems. Like, I had to dream different ways of being in the world, right? I'm not a reformist. Abolitionism isn't isn't a reformist movement. Abolition is a complete abolishing, of any system. American abolitionism is, of course, rooted in slavery, anti-slavery movement. Of course, that work was happening with radical Quakers, and with leaders, and radical Quakers, the suffragists, but the suffragists really weren't into race or slavery abolition. They were just really into, white women. It was white women into women's rights, and class maintenance with white men. But still, there was a lot of intersection between radical Quakers and so forth, and abolitionists and suffragists. But also with leaders like Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Frederick Douglass, just to name a few folks happening. And that's where my abolition is grounded in. It's about revisioning a different world, society where everyone has access to the resources they need. They need to be well and happy. And so, I carried that in my 20s. And then, coming into Buddhism, I really kind of suspended or just kind of put on hold this pursuit of social liberation while I really got really involved in Dharma practice, and going to retreat and everything. And coming out of retreat, kind of coming back to this, particularly with the killing of Trayvon Martin, really happened like less than a year, maybe, I think, after I finished retreat. And so getting thrown back into this and really starting to do some really, like, intense emotional and, intellectual labor around bringing social liberation, ultimate liberation together. And of course, I met Reverend Angel, right? And that began, radical Dharma, and that for me was really important. because it was her teaching and work that started giving me language to to help bring about radical dharma. Um, so so now it's as many of radical dharma is really, it's about the integration of ultimate freedom and relative freedom together. That we can't really experience absolute freedom until we begin to experience relative freedom, right? And I think that teaching has multiple layers, very nuanced layers, but that's really the gist of it, right? But again, we live in a culture, and I want to say specifically a spiritual culture, a convert spiritual culture, particularly driven by white supremacy and patriarchy and class and elitism and ableism and all of that, that prefers to bypass uh, relative freedom, i.e. justice. So we want to bypass justice to get the absolute freedom because it's too messy to deal with relative freedom and the issues of power and abuse and everything. It's too, let's just get over it, And that's really the sentiment, specifically of the spiritual communities that I feel invested in: Buddhist communities, yoga communities, magic communities. And I just don't, that's not where I come from, right? As someone descendant from enslaved people considered property, right? I understand what it means for my body to be policed. Just me personally. From my experience, I understand policing of bodies, of Black bodies. I understand the over criminalization of Black bodies from my personal experience. And there's nothing I want more, given the trauma that I and really everyone in my community, particularly my community I grew up in here in the South. The one thing that I want more, considering this kind of transhistorical trauma, is for us to have agency over our bodies. And I think that one of the goals of the movement for Black Lives was to start reestablishing, or establishing maybe for the first time, Black people's agency over our bodies. Of course, Radical Dharma adds a caveat there that we want agency over our bodies through the work of healing that we can experience through Buddha Dharma, right? And bringing all that together, abolition, Radical Dharma, and everything that I just mentioned, for me, it's first and foremost that we disrupt, eradicate policing of people's bodies, everyone's bodies, and over-criminalization of people's bodies. That's first and foremost what I'm interested in, right? And I know that there's no such thing as reaching into these experiences of emptiness and space and spacious and whatever, unless I deal with the trauma of living in a world where I feel as if I don't have access to my body, right? The Buddha, see, this is when people get confused, because then people forget that I'm actually a trained Buddha scholar, right? Which is a lot to say. I don't publicly disclose that publicly. But when I started talking about the Buddha and embodiment, the Buddha didn't really get free until he learned to develop agency with his body, and then people just get confused, So I just wanted to say all of that, right? And then what does that have to do with this practice? Healing begins with agency, right? Basically, like, and this is what Buddhist Tantra is doing. It's about reclaiming our agency, right? It's about knowing, understanding, right? But it's not just knowing black and white, or the rigidity, the binaryism of ethics. When I say binaryism of ethics, what I mean to say is that, like, how we get into the space of saying that's right and that's wrong. That's not in line with Buddha Dharma. Like, we don't say what's right, we don't say what's wrong, we say what is conducive to awakening and what isn't conducive, because what's right for you may not be right for me. I think a really good example is the 5 precepts, which are the vows, lay vows, novice vows that many people take, which is, abstaining from lying, killing, sexual misconduct, substances, alcohol, and drugs. And lying, stealing, drugs, sex, and murder, and taking life. Not in that order. But the 5th precept is what I actually want to talk about, which is drugs, alcohol. Like, I don't need to take a vow against substances. Like, I don't have an issue with drugs or alcohol. Some of us do, and therefore those vows are really important to create an experience of discipline and renunciation. So that's not something I have to do. That's something other people have to do, right? Absolutely, right? But there's certain things that I do not do, right, that other people can do, and that's fine, So this is why we say what's conducive, right, to, and what's conducive for us, is, again, having agency over our bodies, right? What's really conducive is to live in a country where one religion isn't dominating everything. Right? So the larger point here is, I think it's also important too, this is another important point that I've been thinking about, is that for me, I don't really care if people are Buddhists or whatever. Like, I know that's an issue for some people, like that's something they care about. I just don't care about people being Buddhist. Buddhism works for me, but then again, I'm in a whole bunch of shit right now. So it's like, I'm not just a Buddhist, by the way. I think you get that by now. Like, I'm a couple of things, right? Legitimately a couple of things, right? But I don't care if people are choosing whatever. What I care about is people having access to the resources that they need to be well and happy, right? That people are able to reduce harm against themselves and against others. You don't necessarily need a religious spiritual dogma or framework to do that. I think it's helpful, but you don't need it, right? And so I don't really care where you're practicing. I care about, what you're doing to be well, right? And what you're doing, and how you're getting resources, right? And your needs met. So, that's where I'm at, right? And what else? I just think that this is a time, I've said this before in other sessions, but this is a time where, like, it's evident that so many people aren't practicing. Like, people aren't practicing. Like, or they're not practicing deeply enough, and it's beginning to show. Like, people have been doing some light practicing, right? And now that shit's hitting the fan, you're beginning to see that people's practices aren't resilient, and because it's not resilient, instead of, like, practicing more deeply and taking practice more seriously, you just actually begin to attack other people for reminding you that your practice is not deep enough. You know, and often this is what I get from people. It's like instead of just saying that, like, you know what, I'm actually not practiced enough. You know, instead people just tend to blame me and people like me, you know, for practicing in the way I practice, and a form of anti-blackness and spirituality, convert spirituality, not just convert. Like I've been in Tibetan spaces, complete Tibetan spaces in Tibet, in India and Nepal, which are fucking anti-black, right? Which is just like people looking at me like, "What the hell are you doing here?" Right? Um, Whereas white folks get a whole bunch of passes to wonder about. Um, a function of a lot of like specifically American spirituality in this country is this expression of anti-blackness. And so people come to me and say, well, you don't know any better. And in that point, I just want to say, fuck you, I actually do know better. Right. Like I just didn't wake up one day and decided to take on these kind of radical abolitionist views, or I just didn't wake up one day after going to a weekend retreat calling myself a Buddhist or a teacher. Like you disregard decades of training and expertise and credentials and best-selling books. You know, and this just doesn't happen to me. This happens to all of my Black friends. You know, my Black yoga friends is something that I've talked about with very well-known Black yoga teachers, is someone you know very well, and other Black Buddhist teachers, of course. So people come to me and it's like, well, you should like think more. No, I've thought a lot, actually. Well, maybe you should think more about your loyalty, right, to, I don't know, white supremacy, or to capitalism or to patriarchy, or your loyalty to class, right? Maybe that's your practice, perhaps, you know. So it's not, it's not so much that I feel angry about any of this anymore. It's just like, this is what happens. This is just kind of how things are. This is why I embrace abolition, because I want a brand new world to come about. I want a new way for us to be together that isn't based on these institutions and systems, right? That's what I'm working for. This is why I do the practices that I do. This is why we do this. Like every Monday night, it's like we're dreaming into a new world. Like, but we have to do the healing to get there. We can't get there if we don't do the healing work. This is why Medicine Buddha is so important. This is why I always say Medicine Buddha is an activist's practice, because Medicine Buddha was an activist, and just in the mythology, right, of Medicine Buddha, past lives, like we kind of infer that like he, or they were committed to justice, right? That there was no healing without also the work of justice as well. And it's okay to have views that maybe don't line up with other people's views. It's okay, to be, since we're talking about this, it's okay to be privately pro-choice. It's okay to love life, right? It's okay to do that, to have those views. But there's a fine line between having a view and then crossing that line into colonizing people into your worldview, right? Because that's not what community is. It's not what inclusivity is, right? Part of abolition is actually about creating communities and structures that actually begin to ask why people need to make the choices that they're making, right? And support people in making choices and making sure they have the resources to make the best choices for themselves with the support of just really affirming, supportive, community accountability structures, right? Um, so, um, yeah, I think it's a hard time, absolutely. And I don't, I'm just never like I never want to say this, but I have to say it. And then war is coming, you know, um, but it's not going to be forever, But these are times when um, practice, like this is when you're earning your practice. I always say, like this is a moment of earning our practice. This is when you have to let go and fall into the practice, right? And it's not ever going to be really comfortable. It's always going to be this discomfort, this tension, as we keep moving deeper into trauma and loneliness and grief and, sickness and illness and everything. It's always going to be that, right? It's always going to be the weight of the collective. It's always going to be our individual and our personal struggles and things that we're moving through. It's always going to be it. But like as we do every session, how can we let go and call in the resources that we need to help to hold us? You know, like you have to get out of this individualism because again, individualism is an expression of all these class and violent systems. This individualism is an expression of colonialism, that I am alone. We're not alone, right? I'm always pushing people to pray because that's the first step, right? I'm like, you don't even have to believe in anything to pray, just like ask for help. Like that's all you have to do, ask for help, right? You don't have to do this alone. Like there's community, right? And if the community can't support you, which is the case for some of us, like we just don't have supportive community, then we have to fall back to getting help from the unseen world, which by the way is underutilized. Like if you want to tap into a source of energy and power and support, you tap into your homecoming circle. You tap into your ancestral deities. I've been really blessed, over the past, I guess, week or so, maybe 2 weeks, where I have some ancestral deities that are reemerging in my practice, and it's been really beautiful, to reconnect. And we've talked about this before. There are deities and practices our ancestors were deeply devoted to that haven't left our bloodline, our ancestry, forever, whatever. That these practices and the energetic, um, we would say in Tantra, we would say samaya, but like oaths, like when you make an oath, when you get initiated into the practice of a deity or a path, then that energetic bond stays with you, and you can actually pass that energetic bond to people, to your descendants. And they don't have to be blood descendants either. Um, and we have that. I think for some of us, those bonds are quite um, dormant, right? But I think we're in a certain condition right now that these bonds are actually reasserting themselves. And it's not always good. I mean, it's not always the best thing, right? But in my experience, it's been really important, because I need all the help that I can get, quite frankly. Um, so again, asking for help, praying, this is why we do Medicine Buddha in the way that we do, because I want us to always feel as if we have access to help, to resource. And this is called faith. I'm a person of faith, right? I became a person of faith when I finally understood what faith was. That faith wasn't something that was performative. Faith was like this realization, it was a conviction, right? That there is help for me if I can just open up my heart and mind to receive that help, that support, and instead of always blocking it, you know. I mean, there's intense darkness, absolutely, but there's also intense light. And we're not even grabbing for the light, you know. To become what's the word? To become vessels, to become channels, I would say, to become channels of light, right? Just to open to channel light. Like if we can just do that a little bit every day, right? That would be a huge shift to channel the light, to touch the light. And what is the light? The light is space. The light is emptiness. The light is the consciousness of the deity. Light, the light is love. The light is compassion. The light is gratitude, right? Moving from contraction, which is darkness, and moving into light which is expansion, openness, space, fluidity, movement. Right? To do that every day, even when it feels impossible to do it. Right? When it feels even impossible to do it, be open. You know. We just have to we have to get into that. We have to get into this for real. This is spiritual warfare, right? Um, and I take spiritual warfare real seriously, like real seriously. And a lot of us aren't, yet. And I think that's also due to it's a trauma response. Like it's a part of the trauma response where we just feel just really shut down. It's the numbness. It's the fright. And also this newer stage of trauma response, which is fawning, which isn't like a lot of people aren't using it, but it's becoming a little more popular. So fawning, right? It's just like that continued stage of fright, Um, a lot of us are there, and it's yes. On one hand, it's okay because it feels very natural, but on the other hand, we have to really have to push through it. We really have to push through this. Again, opening to the light, remembering our ancestors. Like this is a time, since we're still in Pride. I guess next week we'll be out of Pride, but every day is Pride for me. Like every day is Black History. You know, um, but we think about Pride again, and we think about um, just the risks that people have taken. Like I am aware that we have queer identified people in this space. I'm not going to call y'all out, who are older than Stonewall. Like you were around before Stonewall, and you get that, right? As we've been talking about, you get what it means for your body to be criminalized and policed. You know, See, I didn't even have to say anything, Miss Aisha. There you go. I didn't want to point you out, but there's some others. There's a few others in this space. You're not the only one. But yeah, we remember that. Well, you all remember that. And what did those queens do, right? In Stonewall. Was it June 19th? Was it June 19th? June 69. What did they do? They acted up. They were just like, fuck this. You know. And because they did what they did, and also before that in Compton's in San Francisco, they acted up. But that had a different impact than Stonewall, I think. But they acted up and they ignited something, which is the reason why I'm here. But all of that's reversing again. Like we're sliding back down the hill. Like we used to sing when I was growing up. There was a song called "Climbing the rough side of the mountain. I'm climbing up the rough side of the mountain. Um, but now we're sliding back down that mountain, and this is when we act up again, right? Um, and this is when this is, of course, one of the statements I've made this past week is that, like, I will continue to break any law that, as I have done my whole life. Like, this isn't new. Um, that I will break any law that jeopardizes access to resources, happiness, and care for myself and others. And I do this routinely every day. Um, and so this is the last thing I'm going to say because I do want to get into practice. But y'all, I say this all the time. So some of y'all need to stop acting good. Like, you will no longer be rewarded any longer for performing goodness. It doesn't matter if you're good anymore. Because this cultural goodness has always been a way that we've been controlled to, and conditioned to assimilate into systems of silence and erasure. Like, like when I was growing up, to be a good boy meant that you didn't say no. Like, when something didn't feel good, you just had to deal with it. Like, that was being a good boy. And this doesn't feel good. So you need to say no. We all have to say no. And we're all going to have to sacrifice something. We all have to, we're going to have to, like, I really do hate thinking about this, right? But, like, we're all going to have to decide on what we're able to sacrifice and to give up, as we move deeper into this period, because this is what movement work is. This is what social change is. Like, we have to risk. Things have to be risks, And again, being in spiritual communities, there's such overvaluing of comfort. And you're not going to get free comfortable. Liberation is not a comfortable path, right? And of course, you're saying, I'm already uncomfortable. Like, let's use that discomfort that we're already experiencing and turn that into wisdom and compassion and love, right? And you start with empathy. I'm uncomfortable. Everyone else is uncomfortable. That's where you start. Like, it's not just me that's struggling. Everyone is struggling. Even the people you think aren't struggling are struggling, because this is the nature of samsara. Everyone struggles because this is samsara. The carceral state is an expression of trauma. This is trauma. Like, no one's comfortable in it. If you're comfortable, that means you're ignoring and bypassing the reality of your experience, right? And you're only going to get free until you begin to unlock that experience again and go back through the discomfort to start transforming that discomfort into these qualities of wisdom and compassion, right? It's just not going to happen. Like, you're not going to bypass anything to get awakened. That's not how this works, right? This is not how any of this works, right? But having said all of that, again, I want to reemphasize that this will turn out well. I realize I'm super ahead. Maybe it's too early to make the statement, but I think it's important to make it now because I think we need something to hold on to. Like, this is the case. Like, there's no way that this world and all the support that this world is getting from all kinds of beings will continue sliding down the hill like this. I just like it's what gives me hope is feeling and experiencing the overwhelming support that we're getting in this world from the unseen world. Um, like there is just, I mean, and there are some old energies awakening and reemerging that I am very excited about. And you just have to tell. If I know some of you are particularly, I don't really hear this in Buddhist communities, but in magic communities, like this is what people are going through right now. There is an upgrade happening with people, um, and it's amazing. You know, people, are just really like opening, expanding, and awakening in certain ways because this is when we need, you know, these things happening, you know. Um, like there's so many. This is why, again, going back, this is why we're praying, this is why we're practicing like this, because I want you to connect to that. And actually I want us to do that tonight too. Like I just want us to like connect. I know we do this every session, but we do it in different ways. But like I just want us to open to the light, to consciousness, to love, to compassion. And I just want us to experience just really like that energy. It's like that energy is like falling into us like a waterfall. Like we're standing under a waterfall and this light is just pouring into us. I want us to start really like drinking deeply, right? And we don't even have to share this. We usually have this part of the practice where we share this energy. I just want us to like drink deeply. Like, I mean, I'm doing it right now. Like that's how um I practice. Like I can just open to it right now and just feel. I feel it's a physical experience. Like I feel, you know, the love, I feel the compassion, I feel the gratitude, yes, and the discomfort is still there, the anxiety, the fear, and anger, and all that, that's still there. But like, I can feel the flow of this light energy, you know, and the dark and gloom of things, you can always connect to this, right? Like, I want you to get to a point in practice where you feel the phenomenal world, every inch of the phenomenal world, from a chair to a loved one to a deity to a tree to a rock, everything in the phenomenal world. I want you to get to a place where you just feel everything in the phenomenal world loving you, wanting you to get free, right? That the world, the phenomenal world, inherently loves you. Like the phenomenal world doesn't hate you, right? People hate each other, you know. There are conscious energies that can hate you, right? But like the phenomenal world itself is nothing but an expression of love, right? And that's the trick of samsara, is that we have to train to not get distracted by the hate of beings, but to connect to the love of the whole phenomenal world. Right? What is that like for you? I know this is completely abstract, but you have to start somewhere, right? Like, what is that like for you to feel the vast love or to feel a trickle of love, right? And this love is like, it's just this deep experience of like something wanting you to be free, Like you feel the I don't know, the push, the momentum of the world, the phenomenal world wanting you to get free, the phenomenal world wanting you to understand what it is, right? Because this freedom, like freedom has nothing to do with our feelings about freedom. What I feel about freedom is a completely different thing than being free, right? Like my feelings about freedom have nothing to do with being free. Yes, I may want to be free, right? I may dream about freedom, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to do anything to get free. I have to take my feelings about freedom and embody that labor and that work and do the work, like bring about the conditions of freedom and liberation, right? And if we don't do that, then freedom will just remain a dream. It will remain something that seems impossible and unattainable, right? And my ancestors have told me something very different, that there is the possibility of freedom. And my traditions that I study and practice in tell me that not only is there social freedom possible, there is ultimate freedom available as well. Other beings have done this before, right? Therefore, I have a template to follow to get free. I have to do more than want to get free. I have to start believing that freedom is my fundamental basic state of being, and that really all I am doing is remembering that I am free. I am just remembering that I am free. All right, so let's begin. We're actually, we've already began. So I just want to just go back before we continue deeper into the practice. I just want you to go back to where you're at, wherever you're sitting, and just spend a little more time with this practice of opening. I know some of you are brand new. I know for the rest of us, maybe this is really abstract. It is important that we start here, and we'll go back and start from the bottom and work our way up, right? But we're just going to start here because some of us can actually get there just, in this moment, right? I just want you to experience that for those of you who are doing it. Then we'll go back and build the practice back up, right? So again, just opening. What does it mean to open, right? And often we trigger that opening by just thinking about other beings, right, who love us, who care for us. I just think about the times in my life that I've been so deeply loved and cared for that I just fall open. Like being loved and really opening to that love and that care is actually an expansive experience. It's a relaxing experience. It's an opening experience. I just fall open, right? And of course, at this point, I've learned how to do a little better in receiving love. And so that's what some of us are really struggling with as well. We don't even know how to take in like what we're thinking about, or we don't know how to go back to these past experiences and really take in this experience of love. And thinking about the last time or just a really significant time in your life where you felt this love. And again, you can feel this experience as light. Often that's, give this visualization of the sun, that this care, this love is like the rays of sun. It's like sunlight falling on me. I can feel the warmth, I can feel the light around me. And maybe I can even feel myself absorbing this energy of love and care. So the rays of light, the rays of the sun falling on me. And of course, it's going to bring up um, discomfort, right? It's going to bring up the grief and the sadness and the fear, anxiety, and everything. But the light of this care can actually hold these experiences of discomfort. And so maybe in the rays of this light of care, like we can feel the love of our ancestors. We can feel the love of the people who've come before us, who've made our lives possible, like who've helped us to have access um, to the things that we need, right? Remembering those people, like people did that. I don't know, like honestly, like I don't know, you know, if everyone at Stonewall that night was thinking about me or, their descendants, coming after that. I don't think that was really what they were thinking, that we're going to start an international movement for gay rights and liberation. I don't think that's what they were doing. I just think they were tired and wanted to be happy, right? But that's enough. And I think they realized what they did, and they want that to continue for us in this moment. Like you can't, you won't see the changes we need to see right now until you really connect on some level to this love. Because if we don't connect to the love, we're just going to start reproducing the old violence and hate that we're trying to escape from right now. Like you have to enter into the work, the change work, being connected to the love of countless beings who've come before us, connected to the love of the descendants who are coming after us. Like it's not just about me right now. It's about who's coming before me. It's about everyone who's coming after me. It's about everyone who's come before me, right? Just a little bit longer here before we continue. And this is really a good space to offer prayers as well. Not yet. I won't offer the community prayers, but just your personal prayers. Like being in this space is a really it's nice to offer into this. Right? And what if you've never experienced love, right? it's sometimes I think about like my experience of playing with puppies and kittens and pets. Like it only, it's reflecting on just one moment. It doesn't have to be this monumental, overwhelming moment of care. I love this one moment where you just slightly felt like someone cared. A puppy, an animal, the wind blowing when you're like drenched one day outside and the wind comes along. You're like, oh my God, thank you for this wind. Or a drink of water, or the seat under you that's holding you, the earth under you that's holding everyone. You just don't have to be loved by a living being or a conscious being. Right? It can be by anything in the phenomenal world. I am grateful for this water that I have. I feel loved by this water. I feel loved by my seats. I feel loved by these pillows. I feel loved by the light, this ring light in front of me. I feel loved by this technology that's helping me to be with you all. Like it's just expanding how we understand care to see how everything is actually taking care of us. And you can get into that through gratitude. What are you grateful for? Because we're looking for a spark. Like this is a spark. Because we have a whole bunch of gas going. Like we got the gas on. We just need a little bit of a spark to get this flame going. Okay. So let's just continue actually just rooting the practice more, and then we'll come back into this experience, right? Because we want to get into our mantras as well in our prayers. Um, so so again, like this is always the agreement. You can stay wherever you want. You can stay right here in this experience. If this is really, really helping you, if you feel really like this is tending to you, please stay here. Um, but I'm just going to go through just some grounding practice to come back into the consciousness of medicine Buddha. Right. So if you want to continue moving on, I just invite you to just shift your attention to the seat again. If you haven't already been there, and just noticing the weight of the body, right, in the seat rising to meet you. Noticing the earth under you as well. So I wonder if you can even feel the love again of the earth, and maybe feeling the love of the seat under you as well. And what if you can surrender to being held by the seat, by the earth? So let's move into our first mantra. And this is an invitation to Medicine Buddha, to begin to awaken the consciousness of Medicine Buddha. So Namasange Kino Soha. And again, Kino is often translated as think of me. So Medicine Buddha, think of me. This is a strict translation. But Kino, I again invite you to interpret it in any way that you need to interpret it. So maybe it's Medicine Buddha, please help me. Medicine Buddha, please hold me, right? Medicine Buddha, please shine your light on me. Something, anything. Again, what do you need right now? And ask in this mantra as we chanted for Medicine Buddha to offer you this. And so we're just going to chant it a few times. You can listen as well, whatever feels appropriate. Okay. We're going to start out with just chanting Om, and then afterwards we go into the mantra for a few times. Okay. Om. sange kino soha. Om la sange kino soha. Om la sange kino soha. So returning back now to this light that we've been practicing with. And if you haven't already been doing this in the practice, I encourage you just to deepen this experience of light by beginning to imagine that this light is the expression of all the beings who love you, like from friends and family and lovers and pets to deities and ancestors to just the love again from the phenomenal world, that the phenomenal world is shining on me, is shining this brilliant energy of light and love and compassion and deep acceptance, right? And going through the door of maybe reflecting on other experiences of care and love. But we're trying to strengthen, stoke, like these kind of starter, experiences of care. And trying to grow them in our practice. But we're growing them so they begin to hold everything. So the love, the care, the compassion that we're experiencing begins to hold the trauma and the numbness or the fear or the anxiety. And again, being filled with this light. So we'll prepare to move into our mantra practice. And the mantra will be right there in the chat box. And so as we go into the mantra practice, just continuing to sit with any level of light that you're experiencing and connecting to, and relying on this mantra, which is simply a prayer to Medicine Buddha, right, to intensify this experience. And we begin. O te ata begenze, begenze, ma begenze, rasa sumungate soa. Te ata begenze, begenze, ma begenze, rasa sumungate soa. Te ata begenze, begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumanga de sua. Te ada begenze, Begenze, Mahabegenze, Lazarusumagadesoa. Beata 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 Begenze, Begenze, Mahabegenze, Lazarusumagadesoa. Just beginning to offer our prayers, our collective prayers. So, to begin with, I especially invite all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dharma protectors, all benevolent spirits, guides, saints, angels, all benevolent ancestors. I call into the space, the earth, and all the elements. Uh, and I, on behalf of this community that's gathered, in this moment, virtually, I offer these prayers. And we pray that you act on our behalf to bring about the fruition of what we're offering prayers for. We're offering prayers for my mother's health and autonomy. We're offering prayers for my healing for my knee. It seems a bit better, getting a message the healing is available. I hope that I get the message and can pass it along. Offering prayers for Thamprana, Patricia, Galich, Khalid, Osama, who entered the bardo a few weeks ago, and all of his family. For Chava Bailey, Martha Ingleton, and for countless beings at this time. Prayers for Paula. His prayers for all beings. Offering prayers for Aunt True, Mr. Hine, and Faith, and all who recently died. Prayers for me as I continue to heal and move COVID all the way out. Offering prayers for my husband as he struggles with health setbacks, and Allison, who is doing the same. Prayers for all to feel enough care, resources to care for others. Prayers that I can feel resilient as I move through health challenges. Prayers for physical healing as well. And prayers that more now will fill the pool to dream our new future, where there is abundance for all. Prayers for Gen Z who are growing up right now, seeing things fall apart, that they have hope, strength, and protection. Prayers for all numbed by fear and hopelessness, that they experience deep love and can start to hope and be brave. Prayers for my loneliness and grief, that they might teach me more about wholeness and liberation. Prayers for Elle and her family, that Elle gets the safety, deep care, and attention she needs. Prayers for everyone who is feeling fearful, lonely, and disconnected. Prayers for people who are seeking abortions and reproductive health care. Prayers for myself and my husband as we recover from COVID. And prayers, just prayers. Prayers for Sarah to help heal her digestion. And prayers for Brooke, having lost her best friend yesterday. And sending prayers of gratitude. Prayers for me to be discerning about how to love my daughter. Prayers for all sentient beings to be free. Prayers for my son to learn to be kind to himself and find some kind of happiness. And prayers for Dieter, who is soon to enter the bardo after a long illness. Prayers for Denise as she recovers from cancer surgery and her mom supports her every step. Prayers of love and protection for the keepers of the Dharma, including Lama Rod, for Bhumima, for the goddess, for Tibet and Tibetan people, for the elements, all beings, all suffering, for peace, abolition, Kirti BIPOC, for myself, my practice, and the ability to overcome all obstacles toward personal liberation, and for all kin and helpers, past, present, future, all realms for peace and freedom for all. Offering prayers for my recovery from COVID and prayers for all who feel isolated and lonely. I want to lift up all the prayers that remain unspoken, prayers that have not been articulated in the space, but that rests within our hearts. I lift those prayers up as well. Pray for the love, happiness, compassion, wisdom, equanimity of all beings, that all beings get what they need in order to be happy, to be safe, and to be healthy. That all systems of violence and control are abolished. That we are able to really trust our capacity to dream beyond the suffering and the trauma that we feel lost in right now. I pray for the light. I don't pray necessarily to get rid of the darkness, but I pray for the light to balance the darkness now. and for us to take refuge in the light and just learning how to hold space with the darkness instead of being swallowed by it. And we all experience freedom as quickly as possible. And we all be free. So returning back to the mantra just for a bit, and just letting the energy of these prayers just be released into the world. Not holding on to the anxiety about the prayers, but just letting the prayers go and trusting all the beings we've evoked to work on our behalf, to bring about whatever needs to happen for the benefit of all. Ma begenze raza sumungate soa. Begenze 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 ma begenze raza sumungate soa. Beata begenze ma begenze raza sumungate soa. Beata begenze ma begenze raza sumungate soa. Beata begenze ma begenze Rasa sumungafte suha. So again, reconnecting to the seat, to the weight of the body, to the earth under you. Coming back into this time, this place, this moment. Letting the seat hold you, to catch you. We begin to turn our attention to just our last mantra, which we'll recite in just a very short period. And it's the mantra of the Great Mother, the Mother Durga Ma. And we evoke her in this practice for protection. So as we end our practice, we're transitioning out of practice, being wrapped by the Mother's protection as we enter back out into our lives. And again, if you want to do a visualization, just imagining blue light radiating from your heart center. Of course, this blue light symbolizes awareness of mind, the nature of mind itself. That is ultimately our recognition of emptiness. That is our ultimate protection. Recognizing the illusion of everything. But this blue light radiating, creating a field around us, and imagining that it's also creating a field around all others in our lives who need protection as well. Om Dum Durgaye Namaha. And again, beginning with Om Dum Durgaye Namaha. 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 Om Daya Namaha. Om Dum Daya Namaha. Om Dum Daya Namaha. Om Dum Daya Namaha. Again, shifting our attention to the seat, noticing the weight of the body, making contact with the seat. Beginning to reawaken the body through some gentle movement, maybe some deep cleansing breaths, which are just breathing into the nose, exhaling through the mouth, releasing anything that feels tight or heavy, or constricted. And again, reconnecting to the energy of love. This is something we can always stay connected to. The more we do it, the stronger we become in it. And we shift our attention to our closing prayer, Shanti Deva's prayer from the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. We'll recite this 3 times. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space, and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. And finally, may I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space, and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. So thank you everyone for your practice. Please sign up for Bhumi Sparsha's email list, and you can sign up for mine as well. And that way, through Bhumi Sparsha's email list, you'll get the news about when this registration is open. There's a lot of stuff coming this fall through Bhumi Sparsha. We will be having an in-person retreat here in Atlanta the last week of October. And it's going to be really special, really different. This is going to be an urban retreat, so we just want to have everyone find their own housing. So it's not going to be a residential retreat, but we'll be gathering every day. And they'll be released pretty soon as well, once we finalize a few details. Please stay connected to my website. Again, I have a BIPOC three-part series coming up in July, and with some special guests coming in, some psychologists, mostly psychologists, mental health professionals coming in talking about grief, right now for people of color. So that's coming up, and I think that was it. I think that was all I needed to share. Yeah, I think that's it. So thank you, everyone. And I will, if I don't see you in any other space before next Monday, I'll see you back here on Monday. Thank you, everyone, for your love and support in your practice, and keep practicing. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.